All right, welcome back to another edition of the New Mexican Sports Podcast. I'm your sports editor, Will Weber, as always, joined by James Barron. James, it should be noted that I'm on vacation this week, so I'm just jumping in with the full understanding that I'm not dialed in with sports at all. So I do have a special guest with us today. Okay,
A fern.
So it's between one fern, the podcast, between one fern podcast. Okay.
Actually, you should just put that like in front, like right in front of you, so that way it just looks like I'm talking to a fern,
If
a
the
talking
conversation lulls because we don't have anything to talk about, I'll bring on my fern and see what it says. Because I did actually try to get Jason Eck on here, but it's summer vacation and they didn't hear anything back. And then since I knew I was going, but I think the toughest part about going on vacation is the week before because you're going on vacation, and so you start to throttle it back. By Tuesday of last week, I think I was basically useless as a person, as a journalist, because I knew I was I'm out the door.
Yeah.
So I asked for Jason Eck. They said, it'd be a great idea. And then I just quit trying after that. So it's like,
okay, we got this done, right?
Yeah.
Just cross that off the list.
I will make a concerted effort to get Jason Eck on here, hopefully next week, because as anyone who pays attention to college football, the Lobos should be pretty decent this year. And then their preseason Mountain West Media Day event is coming up in mid-July in Las Vegas. And that's where we'll probably find out that the Lobos are the preseason pick to win the Mountain West, which is –
You're going to be so disappointed when they get like picked second or third by UNLV and South Dakota State,
Even then, that would just be amazing just to see them other than last, because usually they're picked last or second to last.
Yeah, I mean that I guess that shows you how much progress they've made, and also the fact that almost everybody that would have been picked ahead of them moved to the Pac-12.
Yeah, that's another thing for the next round of conference realignment when it comes up in 5 years. I think now is the most important time in Lobo football history, is they've got to sustain this, even though Jason Eck might not actually be here that much longer. They're gonna have to find a way to make football relevant for 5 years. Fill the stadium, win some games, get some headlines, and then maybe you move into a better conference. Because, let's face it, facing UTEP is not exactly going to move the needle for anybody.
No, not at all, man. Or those scintillating trips to UC Davis.
Yeah. Well, UC Davis will be the next team to join the Mountain West. They're joining for other sports. They haven't joined for football yet. They're still at the FCS level, but. Yeah, that's again. I mean, what are we doing here? So Anyway, look, the big news. The big news this week, other than the rodeo to Santa Fe, which I know you're thrilled about, is that's strategically why I'm taking vacation this week, so I don't have to worry about the rodeo. not that we won't tell anybody. We'll just cut all that part out. It was the news yesterday.
I like how you were completely unsubtle about that.
Yeah. Hey, it is what it is. When you're not an influencer and you're not pushing product, they're not going to give you a credential. So whatever.
Yeah. But it's not like we're missing anything, right?
Yeah. We'll leave all the rodeo stories to Tristan Critchfield and then Cormac, the newsie, who wrote the rodeo story for us over the weekend, which is it's your job now. You're so good at it. You're the rodeo beat writer.
Thing, man. You want the rodeo, you can take it.
Yeah, Cormac, if you're watching this, and I'm sure you are, you're now the rodeo beat writer for the Santa Fe.
There you go.
But the big news coming out of Albuquerque on Monday, we're recording this on a Tuesday, was the New Mexico Activities Association getting the vote back from the membership, which approves the 1-year transfer rule. And you said this all along, and I didn't quite actually jump into what you were saying until I saw the vote, is it was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. If 4 votes change, we're talking about keeping the old system. That's how close it was. I mean, it was a 67-60 vote in favor of it. 127, I believe it was 127 out of the 159 member schools voted for this. And to me, I'm like, well, why did 33? I mean, you're talking about 32 schools that didn't vote for it, and I'm like, well, if you complain about the transfer rule now, you've got no reason to speak. And there were some surprising names on the list, especially in Albuquerque, of those who didn't vote. We were talking like, I think Sandia Prep was one, Legacy Academy was another. I was a little bit surprised by that. And thank you, James Yotis, for the Albuquerque Journal for getting that list. from the NMAA as far as who voted and who didn't, and how they voted. So not to bury the lead or anything, but Santa Fe Public Schools, both Capital and Santa Fe High, voted for the measure, and surprisingly, the Vegas schools, both Las Vegas Robertson and West Las Vegas, also voted for it. I really thought that those two schools would have been against it, just from the perspective that they really haven't been fans of the transfer rule in general. And I know there was a lot of pushback from a lot of people, from a lot of coaches and a lot of and the ADs there, the administrators, I should say, about that. But obviously, once they got together with other administrators and some of the board members, obviously they changed their minds about that and decided to go ahead and do this. Now we're waiting to see, okay, who dips their toe into the pool, and who's transferring and who's moving. As things kind of went along and started talking to more coaches, I got the sense that some of the apprehension that people had maybe was a little bit overblown. I think there are a lot of coaches and ADs that feel like there isn't going to be that much movement. I think in certain areas, like say Albuquerque, Las Cruces, Las Cruces is going to be a challenge just because they're not allowing interzone transfers. So that kind of puts the kibosh on some of that there. APS, but has been one of those situations where we've seen kids, go from school to school there. So I don't think that's really going to change things that much. But I thought one area that might be of interest for us in northern New Mexico was I don't know how else to describe it, but you get that consortium of schools from Los Alamos, Pewaukee, Espanola, McCurdy, Peñasco, Mesa Vista, that area right there. I thought that might be a place where we might see some movement, but even in talking with some of the athletic directors and coaches there, they're like, we get that anyway. So we're not necessarily surprised. We're going to be surprised, if we do see movement there. I mean, kids are transferring from one school to the next, year in and year out. So they don't feel like they're going to see a drastic change in that. I think what it'll be is there will be maybe 2 or 3 big names out there that may switch schools, and that's going to create some attention. But I think for the most part, I don't think we're going to see a lot of transfers. I mean, there will be more. I mean, on average, they usually get about 600 to 700 a year. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they approach maybe 800, 900, maybe 1,000. But I don't think it's going to be this floodgate. The floodgate is going to open quite the way that maybe some people thought it would initially.
Yeah, I think to me the biggest litmus test isn't going to be necessarily so much Albuquerque or even Santa Fe. I look at the 2 school towns like Las Vegas, where you don't have to move across town. You can stay in your same residences, jump schools, or Roswell even. Roswell's got 2 4A schools.
Goddard, yep.
Yeah, but Las Vegas would be really interesting because look, the Robertson basketball team, the boys basketball and girls team have established themselves as pretty solid programs. And if say West Las Vegas has a point guard and maybe you're a little weak at point guard, yeah, kind of create like a little bit of a super team across town, and you're not really stepping on anyone's toes at all. You're staying in the same neighborhood. You're doing whatever you got to do. So I think Las Vegas will be pretty interesting. I think you could see kind of the disillusion of both teams being good at the same time. You don't really see it all that often anyway, but I think by and large, you're going to see one team just really just skyrocket above someone else. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you could see that. And, speaking from Santa Fe's perspective, I'm talking to some of the other coaches in that area. I don't think they're as concerned because they feel like the kids that they have want to be there. They're not sitting there clamoring to go to Capital or vice versa. And I think that they've got some solid coaches there that that the kids want to play for. So especially in football. Basketball might be a little different now because we've still got that opening there at Capital that they have to fill, and we're gonna have to wait and see who they get for that position. But I mean, that might be one thing where you do see maybe a couple of kids from Capital that switch over to Santa Fe High, or maybe go someplace else. I mean, I'm not sure what their other options are. One thing that kind of came out that came out of it that I thought was somewhat interesting was, I think it's a topic that maybe hasn't gotten as much attention as say the big school issue, but that's charter schools. One of the problems that they're going to have is getting kids transferred to them is going to be kind of a mess because you have to qualify for it. You have to go through the lottery system and get your number picked. So you have to So you have to put your hat in the ring for that. And that usually happens toward the end of the school year. So it's not like, right now you can go in and transfer to ATC, or you can go to Monte del Sol. You have to wait till the spring and then hope that your number gets picked. But on the flip side of that, those schools, those kids from those schools, if they don't like what's going on there, they can leave.
Yeah.
And really put those programs in a lurch. And it's not like they're teeming with numbers. I mean, shoot, talking to Joe Ray Anaya, the boys coach there at ATC, he was having to juggle numbers a little bit to fill his sub-varsity and varsity teams, and losing one or two guys, that can really hurt a lot. And I would say the same thing for Monte del Sol. You lose one or two guys, you lose a lot. And I think we were saying that before with the small schools in general, that losing one or two athletes is going to have a significant impact. But for places like Monte and ATC, if you spend 2 or 3 years with these kids, talking about from the middle school into maybe their freshman or sophomore year, and then suddenly they just decide, well, I'm going to go play at Santa Fe High, or I'm going to go to St. Mike's or Prep or someplace else. You've invested all that time and effort into them, and they're going to say, well, thanks, but no thanks, I don't want to stay here.
Yeah,
and I think would be a problem.
Yeah, the charter school thing is interesting, because if you're going to draw a parallel to the influence of what the transfer portal has done for the NCAA, you could say the charter school is a lot like the service academies, like Air Force and Army and Navy. You can leave anytime you want, but getting in there requires a heck of a lot of movement. It's not like they can take transfers in. So and the private schools, I don't think are going to benefit from this really at all, because why would you leave capital to go to, say, St. Mike's, where all of a sudden you're having to pay $10,000 or $12,000 in tuition?
And that's even if you, I mean, maybe there's a tuition waiver, maybe there's some scholarships that you can get, but you're still going to have to pay, a fair amount of money just to go to those schools. Or heaven forbid you decide to go to Santa Fe Prep, unless you won the lottery. I mean, that's basically $30,000 a year that you're going to have to pay. I agree with you to that end. I think there was always that concern that like the Hope Christians and the Sandia Preps and Bosque schools were going to benefit from it. But really, when you think about it, I mean, there's a finite amount of money that those schools have, and they just can't give every single athlete, a tuition waiver or, scholarship. So that way they, they can go and play at that school. They're going to have to really work hard at getting those kids at the middle school age and having them come through there, which is kind of what they've done. I mean, you look at what Jim Murphy's done at Hope Christian. They've always been like that, but it's the same way. Damian's got the same issue there at Sandia Prep, where they really build through the middle schools to help get their programs to where they're at. I don't see that changing all that much for them, unless they're well-to-do parents that have their kids in public schools who are like, I just don't like the way things are going here at this public school. We'll go to Hope. We'll go to Sandia Prep. You might see that, but we're not going to see that huge influx. So really, when you look at it from that standpoint, what does that leave you with? Public school to public school transfers. Really, that's what it's going to come down to. And I think that's been the bigger issue. I know that a lot of people have always made a big deal about, private schools can recruit and get their kids from anywhere, but it's like, yeah, but you still got to pay money. So you have to factor that in too. It's just not as simple as just, hey, showing up at Hope Christian or going to St. Pius. It's not like that.
Now, I know you're a big weather forecast guy. Now, you kind of dropped this little nugget a couple little minutes ago, but you said 800 to 1,000 people might jump. That's a significant number of students.
It is. But in general, I mean, that's about what the NMA has been dealing with before they made this ruling. I was talking with Scott Owens there with the NMAA, and he said that generally over the last 4 or 5 years, that's kind of been the target number. It's been between 600 and 700 students generally. It just depends on the year and everything. I think last year, it was about 600 students that went through the transfer process, or at least went through the appeals process there with the through the hardship review committee. So I mean, if we were to apply that logic, I think 800 or 900, is probably is probably going to be the base that we'll see as far as how many kids decide to transfer. And some of them are, like I said, they're going to be some big names and across different sports that we're going to see move. But I think you're just going to see a lot of other kids, whether they're just, that 8th or 9th guy off the bench that's not really getting playing time at, like, say, West Mesa or La Cueva, that decides, well, I'll go to El Dorado or I'll go to Rio Grande because I know I can get playing time there. I think you might see some of that, just because I think there are kids that feel like they're stuck behind 7 or 8 guys, and they just don't see an opportunity coming in the next year or two. I think those kids will probably look for some place that they feel like, yeah, I can contribute here and maybe start or get at least significant playing time compared to what I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the bigger seismic shifts we've ever seen at the high school level.
Yeah.
But I know you've looked into this too, but there's some other significant things that can happen in the immediate future. What do you think is the next big thing that really shakes up the high school stuff? Is it
Well,
the
it's
ESPN contract? Is it NIL? Is it the district realignment? What is it?
Oh, we're a ways away from NIL, from having to deal with that mess. I think the next one, and this will be a pretty significant one, is going to be classification and alignment. And I say that for 2 reasons. One, um, especially from the public school standpoint, you're seeing significant drops across the board outside of a handful of schools who are losing students left and right. And so you're seeing significant, shrinking of student enrollments. I mean, shoot, Del Norte, they used to be one of the bigger schools in Albuquerque, and now
Yeah.
they're under 1,000 students. I mean, Valley is going down that path too. You look at, locally here, Capital and Santa Fe High. If you kept the current alignment figures that they use for enrollment as far as enrollment breaks for each class, they're going to be 4A schools. I think what you'll see now is it's going to be kind of and this is just me forecasting. I don't have any insight as far as what some of the people from the NMA are telling me, but I can tell you, I think it will be a combination of enrollment plus overall success. I mean, you might see a model similar to what you see, like say in Colorado, where they take into account your overall success over like a 4 or 5 year or maybe a decade period. And if you've won a lot of state championships, that factors into whether or not you get moved up a class or not, and vice versa. We'll see this whole relegation promotion thing that'll become a big deal. We're already seeing it in football. I wouldn't be surprised if this gets expanded into other sports.
Mhm.
So from that end, I mean, you could conceivably see like, say, a Santa Fe High playing at the 5A level in basketball, but being in 4A for baseball, 5A for football, even though there's six classes, there's a 6A, they would be in 5A there. So you're going to see schools kind of all over the place. And, as much as we're going to need, a scorecard to figure out what kids are where this year in 2028, you're just going to need a list of, oh, okay, Milwaukee's playing 3A in basketball, 4A in football, 2A, or they won't have 2A in tennis and everything, but maybe, maybe down in 4A or 3A for, for wrestling or something like that. But you're going to see that stratification where, a school's not going to be consistently across the board in just one class like it has been. I think there's been an argument for that, especially for some of the schools where they struggle in specific sports. And I think the 2 biggest ones are basketball and football, when you look at it from that standpoint. And we've already seen kind of how that works in football. And I think it's worked out well for the most part. I think it's given most of the schools that relegate down, it gives them an opportunity to kind of hit that reset button and get themselves back to where they need to be. I don't think we've had a situation yet where we've seen a school that's gone down and then gone back up. I think the closest one was Milwaukee. And I think had they won a playoff game, I believe the rule is had they won a playoff game, they would have moved back up to 4A. But as it stands now, especially now because of their enrollment, they're going to be down in 3A no matter what. But say like a school like, like some of the Aztec, I think is a perfect example. They've been a 4A school and now they're going to be down in 3A. If they have a modicum of success and they finally win a playoff game, you may see them move back up to 4A because of that.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the one big thing I think about is when we start covering some of these sports, it is kind of hard to keep track of what classification some of these guys are in. Like Santa Fe High and Capital being at different levels for football is just it's bizarre. But yeah, it's one of these things. Like Albuquerque is different. I remember back in the day, it shows our age, but Del Norte was a pretty significant size school, but that part of town just aged out. People it's not such a family friendly place. The people who had kids and raised kids in that area, they all grew up and moved away. And Albuquerque just kind of spread out from the middle towards the outer edges. So El Dorado, La Cueva, Trisco Heritage, the Volcano Vista, Cibola, all those schools got bigger because people started moving to the outside part of the town. I think that's where you see all the biggest schools in Albuquerque. And in a lot of ways, Santa Fe and some of these surrounding areas can tend to be that way, where people just aren't living in impoverished areas anymore.
Yeah.
And if they do, it affects the enrollment. And then the other places like Aztec, like Silver City, can be affected by the state's revenue streams, the mining and the gas industry. So there's so many different factors that go into it. But I do like the relegation and the promotion part of it. I think that creates a pretty interesting dynamic. But there's other schools like New Mexico Military. You and I've been around long enough where New Mexico Military Institute is just absolute terrible in most sports. And then just out of the blue, they come together with this amazing tennis team or a baseball
Yeah.
team or something. They're just really
Or
good.
their soccer teams have been really good for the last 3 or 4 years. And
Yeah.
let's be honest, I mean, they get kids from certain areas. I'm not going to say where.
Yeah.
Down south.
Yeah.
I'm not talking like southern New Mexico. I'm talking Mexico.
Yeah.
But I mean that's kind of the advantage that they do have with that. And you got to give them credit for that. But and those types of schools that kind of operate in that vein.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you win 2 or 3 state titles, in a 4 or 5 year stretch, okay, well, go see what you can do a 4A. I don't think there's necessarily a problem with that. I think it would be great, from that end, because at least then, you quiet a lot of the coaches and the administrators who always cry that we can't compete with the Hopes or the Nimmies or the St. Mike's because we can't recruit kids like they can. And for as much as they want to whine about that, I don't think the recruiting part is the issue. I just don't think that they have an infrastructure that's as successful as some of those other schools. And yeah, granted, I mean, Nimmy probably does, have the advantage of being able to grab some kids from outside, even outside the state or even outside the country that can come in and help them. But at the end of the day, I mean, those are far and few between. I still laugh at people that want the private schools to have their own classification. I'm like, there aren't enough private schools for that to happen. Yeah. Otherwise, all the lower level private schools like Bosque School and Santa Fe Prep, they're going to complain that why do I need to play the Pisces and the Academies and the Hope Christians for a state title? I'd rather play in my own class because I can compete with those groups. So I mean, you're trading one set of problems for another, but it'll be interesting to see what happens here in a couple of years. But I do think that alignment and classification is going to be the next big the next big project for Dusty Young and his staff. And it's funny that you mentioned it and you asked me that, because I think I'm going to be writing a column today specifically talking about, okay, we're done with transfers, now let's tackle alignment, because I think that's kind of the bigger issue, and it's going to be the big issue over the next 10, 15, 20 years, because I mean, let's be honest, public schools are dying. Whether it be the small school levels, especially 1A. I mean, you look at, it used to be that you and I didn't have to worry about 1A schools. It was a New Mexico school for the deaf in Coronado. Now we've got Penasco. Now we've got Escalante. Now we've got Cuesta. And that's only going to grow. And then you're going to see, I mean, St. Michael's could potentially be a 2A school here maybe in 5 years just because of the way things are going.
Yeah, it is a 2A school. They just choose to play up.
Yeah, you're right. But they may just finally just say, okay, fine, we're going to play in 2A. And I wouldn't blame them. You're looking at Santa Fe and Capital. I mean, they're not 5A schools, they're 4A schools, and they need to be down in 4A. And so I think you're going to see things kind of shift pretty significantly. And quite honestly, I think 5A needs to be smaller. I mean, or 6A if you're looking at football. There are some schools where, if you get 2,000, 2,500 kids in your school, you just have a natural competitive advantage against a school that has 16, 15, or 1,400 students. You just have more kids that you can pull from. And quite honestly, kids probably are that would be going to, like, say, a Santa Fe High or an Albuquerque High. They're going to go to a La Cueva. They're going to go to a Cleveland or a Rio Rancho because that's where they want to be. That's where they know that, the talent is and where they can showcase themselves. So I think it only makes sense that, 5A maybe becomes like where it's a 16 or 12 or 16 school classification where everybody plays in the state tournament.
Well, we're going to take a break, but there's a couple of high school things we need to touch on, because personnel-wise, look, the summer is for personnel changes, and a couple of schools around town and outside of town have had some significant personnel changes in the last week or two. So we can touch on that, and then I still want to get your opinion on this soccer tournament that's going on right now. I've been, now that I'm on vacation, I've started to pay attention to it a little bit more. So we can talk a little bit about soccer.
Will, watching soccer? That's impossible.
I know it's vacation. I have nowhere. It's not like I can go down to South Beach and hang out and drink pina coladas all day.
Well, you
I,
get to hang out at Tingley Beach, but
right.
it's not nearly as photogenic as it is like the South Beach.
I have my car jacked up on cinder blocks if somebody takes all my stuff out. I could do that. But we'll take a break. We'll come right back, talk a little bit more about high school sports and then other stuff that's coming up for us.
I'm David. I work for Chevron, and this is my New Mexico. Chevron's been here for 100 years. My family could go back even further. All of my brothers work in energy.
I grew up in Farmington, New Mexico. There is a lot to love about New Mexico. We are raising our kids here.
We're here for the long term. I'm paving the way for my daughters so that they feel the same pride in New Mexico.
Here we go. All right, we're coming off Father's Day, and look, James, I know as far as I know, you're not a father. You could be. I'm not really sure.
As far as I know, no. Hey, I haven't gotten any. Nobody's served me any paternity papers yet, and I'm already past 50, so better hurry.
Someday somebody's going to do a 23andMe and find out that you fathered like 12 kids somewhere, and it's going to be a whole big mess.
Oh boy, that's a lot of back alimony that I'm going to owe.
Well, for my Father's Day, my kids actually pooled their money together and bought me a new Stanford hat. Which, if you've ever seen me wearing my old Stanford hat,
that's an awful big S that they got on that.
It's a huge S. Yeah, I'm not. It's taking some getting used to. But my old hat was so beat up, and it was like they don't make hats out of wool anymore. They used to make hats out of wool, so if you sweat or if it got rained on, it would shrink. And so
yeah.
When I was a kid,
you had to go like a size over what you normally
wear.
Oh
yeah.
Normally, yeah.
Or just like mold to your head, and it had all these weird contortions to it. But when I was a kid, remember Bob Welsh, who was a pitcher for the Dodgers? He was, by the end of the season, his hat was just looked like he wore it in his back pocket.
Yeah,
and that's
what sweat stains and sunflower seeds, tobacco juice. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what my Stanford hat looked like for 20 years, and then they finally bought me this new one. So it's nice. It's taken some getting used to, but it was that's what it's better than like a tool belt or a tie or something. It actually got something that I like.
Are the big logos a thing now? Because I saw somebody walking around with a New York Yankees hat, and it had a big NY, not like a little NY logo that you usually see on the Yankee hat. I'm like, are we getting that blind that we need huge logos to see who we're rooting for now?
Yeah, I know UNM's baseball hats had the same thing. It's just giant UNM logo on there. It's like the trucker hat era, I think.
I almost feel like you're going to fall over if you turn over to the side or something.
The raised embroidering is. But anyway, it was Happy Father's Day. That's how I spent my last weekend, breaking in my new Stanford baseball hat. So, and of course, if I wear this in Santa Fe, people think it's a Sandia Prep hat, and they think I'm rooting for Damian Segura's team. So,
hey, well, you should do that. You should bring it to a St. Mike Sandia Prep game. Yeah,
that'll go over real well. I mean, it's not like we ever get yelled at anyway.
Yeah, I know, with our St. Mike's bias, right?
Well, speaking of St. Mike's, they now have a new boss in charge over there, Paul Weir, who he has promised us an appearance on this podcast, that he will not appear in a rival podcast before he comes on our show. So we'll have him on here soon enough. But some changes over there. Like anytime you get a new person in charge, you're going to make some changes. And they did make a significant change in terms of athletics. And I know that's the story you'd worked on for a couple of days, but Dakota Montoya out as the AD, but he retains his position as boys basketball coach.
Yes. Basically, he and Paul Weir had a discussion with regards to kind of his role there, and I think Paul made it clear that he wanted his administrator to focus specifically on his administrative duties, and he didn't want it to be divvied up between that and coaching. And so they worked out an agreement where Dakota will go back into the classroom. He's going to be a history teacher, history and geography teacher, as well as coaching the boys basketball team, because he wants to keep doing that. So that'll be interesting. I think that's a big opening right there, and I think they will get some good candidates. speaking of which, I think one might be the former athletic director at Santa Fe Indian School. I know we haven't touched on it yet, but Indian School is also going through a change as they let go of Eric Brock. I know that they talked about them parting ways, but I mean, if you read between the lines, basically he was let go. So that job also opens up. So we'll see how that plays out and who they get for that position. But with that said, I mean, I think if they elected to hire Eric as the AD there, I think that would be a great hire, and I'm sure they'll get plenty of other good candidates, for that position. And I understand again, going back to my original point about what Paul was trying to do there, which was to kind of have his administrator basically focus on his administrative tasks and everything. And I think that's kind of a big thing here up north. They really want to keep their administrators focused on their administrative side. It's funny when you look elsewhere at other schools, school districts, especially down south. They don't have a problem with their ADs also being coaches, but the further north you go, the less likely it is that you're going to have an AD/coach.
I think one of the things that has to be discussed in terms of that, like Dakota Montoya does not live in Santa Fe. A lot of people who actually work in Santa Fe don't live there because it's so expensive. But if you're the AD, that means you're the administrator on site by and large most of the time. So during non-basketball season, like soccer and volleyball, he's got to be on campus late and then commute back and forth in addition to doing whatever other responsibilities he has. That makes for some really, really long days. So I think, Dakota's a young man. He's looks pretty healthy, but eventually it'll wear you down. It just gets to you. So
it will, and especially when you've got two young kids like he does. And granted, they're always there at games and everything, especially, when their old man's coaching and everything, they're out there. But at the same time, it does kind of cut in a little bit to that, the father-son, father-daughter dynamic. And even with that whole family, even the wife there, you don't get to see him as much. So, this kind of frees him up a little bit. And I'm sure, I'm sure Dakota's looking forward to actually having a little bit more freedom and being able to do some things, maybe, at night, maybe take him out to a couple of dinners, go see a movie or something in the middle of the week where you normally wouldn't. So I guess that will be a good thing for him. But, and honestly, I thought he did a fine job as the AD. You look at, he really didn't have a lot of hires that he had to make. I think the big one was softball with Maria Cedillo, but that was definitely a home run. You look at what she's done with the program the last 2 years. I'll be curious to see what happens here with girls soccer with Santana Orozco taking over there. And then obviously Daniel Salvidres as the wrestling coach, too, and Brian Gonzalez with the girls basketball position. I think he's got some good coaches there. We'll see how it all plays out and see what materializes out of those programs. But I think at some point you'll see Dakota probably back in an administrative role. But it might be a few years, maybe a decade or so. He kind of wants to establish himself as a good coach and everything. And obviously, I mean, you look at it, he's got a red and a blue trophy so far in his 2 years as a head boys basketball coach. So he's doing pretty good so far.
Yeah, he's pretty likable too. I mean, I've never really run into anyone that had anything bad to say about him. And you're right about his family, a couple of young kids and his wife, they're always around. So he's popular. He's got a cute set of little kids there. So things are going in the right direction for him. But
yeah, and I'm sure Paul's planning on having them play, be at St. Mike's, especially if his son's as big as him. You're definitely going to plow the field there and Joey's offense there in about 15 years.
Yeah. Well, I think in a lot of ways, the most anticipated hire that we've had in Santa Fe in a while, last few years, is who becomes the boys basketball coach at Capital, because that is a program that has historically done pretty well. They've fallen on hard times lately, the last 4 or 5 years, but in a lot of ways, if there's a sport that's going to do well other than boys soccer at Capital High School, it's going to be the boys basketball program.
Absolutely.
So who do you get? Do you actually go outside the family for the first time ever and bring someone in, or what do you do? Look, they don't call you Jaguar James for nothing. What's your thoughts here?
I think we'll see. I mean, we'll definitely see. My understanding is you'll probably see like 2 or 3 of the assistant coaches. Brian Gomez Jr., the son of Ben Gomez. I think Brian Mirabal will probably put his hat in the ring. I think Jaime Bencomo might also do that as well. I think those are the 3 names that right off the bat. But this could be that one time where maybe we see them go outside the family, or maybe they go with somebody who was a part of the family but who's no longer there. I mean, I've kind of touted maybe Brian's brother Terrence, but Terrence has kind of moved down to Las Cruces. He's an assistant coach there at Mayfield. They just made a tough move to go down there about 2 or 3 years ago. So I don't think he's going to want to make that move back up north, even though I'm sure his family would love to have him up here, and I'm sure the Capital community would too. But that would be one guy that I would look at. Maybe there's another guy, there was a former assistant coach over at Santa Fe Prep, Christian Martinez. He got some experience there. Maybe that's a guy that ends up applying for the job. I think we're just gonna have to take kind of a wait and see approach to this. I mean, there's Steve Lovato. He's an assistant coach under Dakota there at St. Michael's. That's a guy that might be a possibility as well, if you're looking at keeping it within the family. But I mean, quite honestly, and my gut feeling is that's kind of what they're going to do, because that's what they've done. I mean, they, outside of Dennis Casados, because he was the first one, they've always hired somebody within the Capital family, and I get the feeling they probably won't change that.
Mikey Dominguez, if you could get Mikey to leave.
Yeah, but he's got a nice gig there at Northern New Mexico.
Or Damian Segura, bring in Damian, bring in the St. Mike's guy.
Bring in the St. Mike's guy at Capital. That works great, man.
Let's just go ahead and start that rumor right here. Just say Damian Segura is one of the front runners for the Capital job. Even though there's nothing to base that on, you just throw it out there and see what happens.
Well, I guess you don't have to worry about going to Thursday or Saturday morning basketball anymore, because there's a certain group of people from San Diego Prep that probably rescinded your invite. For that.
Now, I know you've been watching soccer, because I've been watching soccer.
Yeah.
It's weird because soccer is a lot like curling. I don't pay attention to it at all, unless just for a small blip on the radar every 4 years.
Every 4 years, yeah.
This is kind of neat. Especially when Team America is playing well, which they are right now. And so, in my very limited view of soccer, in my very, very limited, somewhat biased opinion, is I think if the United States is not going to win this thing.
No,
but it does seem that they've kind of figured things out, in the sense that they got a guy from Argentina to coach them, which is if you're gonna get somebody to coach it, find somebody that actually understands soccer, football, so you could do that. And by the way, he looks a lot like Russell Crowe. I think he's a Russell Crowe lookalike.
Yes, everybody's been saying that.
so you have an Argentina coach. One of your star players is not even an American. He's English, but he was born in Brooklyn because they wouldn't let his mom back on the plane when she was pregnant, and so he was born in Brooklyn. So technically, he can play here. They got another guy from the Netherlands, which is an outstanding player. And then really one of your best players is still injured. So it's like they figured it out. They can't win with just American guys anymore. They got to go out and find the best. It's like they promoted the best players from AAA almost. It's like you went through the transfer portal to build a successful team. So that's where it's like, what? If they beat Turkey, when did it become Turkey, by the way?
I know that was a weird thing. I just thought they were Turkey, but I guess apparently that's their proper pronunciation of their country. So
yeah, Turkey. So this is kind of like going back to last week when we had Peter Trevisani on here. I actually did some research for once, because I never do research for the podcast. Is if they beat Turkey on Thursday, that'll be their third win in the World Cup. That's the most wins they've ever had in any single World Cup tournament, and they haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. So, looking forward to it. But I could guarantee this: as soon as they get knocked out in the knockout round, the tournament's dead to me. I don't care who wins.
you're like everybody. You're like everybody else. But no, man, I'd say I probably watched like about 60-70% of the matches that the tournament so far, and it has been wildly entertaining, especially for both. And you've seen a lot of surprises. I mean, you look at Cape Verde and what they've been able to do so far with a couple of ties. You look at Portugal and the struggles that they had, and right now, I mean, as we speak, they're actually winning their match today. So but I mean, you've got a lot of these, you've got a lot of great stories. I mean, Scotland taking over Boston and running the city dry of alcohol.
This is awesome.
Yeah. I mean,
in Norway with their Viking row that they do.
But even Curacao, the smallest island ever to qualify, or the smallest country ever to qualify for the World Cup, and they get a tie out of this, and they've got a shot at getting into the knockout stage. I think it's been really great. I actually think this is great for soccer in America in general, because I think people finally are getting it. It's like, oh, so this is what the rest of the world is talking about. This is what real soccer is like. And maybe we've turned a few people around. It's not like what it has been. Like even in '94, people kind of poo-pooed it as just, it's soccer. And they got a taste of it. And obviously with the US team getting to the knockout stage for the first time, I think in like 20, 30 years at that point, it kind of changed things for soccer in the United States and got them to this point now. And now, I mean, if they get to the round of 16, or God forbid they even get to, like, say, the quarters, if they make a little bit of a run, I mean, this sport might finally take off like we've all anticipated it might. I was talking to I actually went out and was at a bar with Chris, and we were watching the first round match against Paraguay, and we just happened to run into a guy who actually coached soccer in Kansas City and in Chicago for the Fire and for Kansas City Sporting, their clubs and their academies and everything. And he was talking about how good this is probably the best American team that we've had, maybe of all time. So yeah, pretty high expectations of them, especially in the pool that they're in. I'm not sure everybody expected them to dominate like they have, but I think a lot of people are pleasantly surprised by their performance. And it's weird because before they've had to play, that third match has always been one where they either had to win to put themselves in a good spot or win to get in. Now it doesn't matter. I mean, they could put you, me, and nine other scrubs out there, and it doesn't matter because they're the group stage winner, and they're going to enjoy the fruits of that. So this kind of a unique situation where you're playing for nothing, really.
One of the websites I found is FIFA updates its world rankings as games are being played. And so the last when they're playing Australia, they started the game off ranked 16th in the world.
Yep.
And by the end of the game, they were ranked 13th. And so that's where they are right now. They're actually ranked 13th. And so you think mathematically they got a shot at getting to the quarterfinals if all the cards play out right. But I think the side note that I really get a kick out of is watching social media, and all these foreigners are coming into the country. They've discovered things like Buc-ee's and
barbecue, right?
Yeah, 44-ounce drinks, and then and you gotta go through Dallas and Houston with that searing heat and humidity, and you walk into this enormous domed stadium with air conditioning, and they're just blown away. It out of all the stadiums in the entire country, probably the worst one they play in is your stadium, Kansas City. It's like, really? Really?
Come on,
you send us to Kansas City? Come on. They have a
dude.
little tiny scoreboard. Come on. Jeez. You walk into Dallas, they have a stadium that's like it's like 120-foot wide video board. People are just amazed by it. But
oh, come on. Seattle's is just like our Lumen Field's just like Arrowhead. Come on. Except you just want to poke the bear a little bit with that, don't you?
But Seattle was their stadium was built for soccer. It's like basically a soccer stadium that happens to have a football team, and people actually like soccer in Seattle.
Yeah,
Kansas City is like, really? Did you guys run out of places to play?
In Kansas City. What are you talking about?
What? Like, couldn't you just move the game to Minnesota?
Like 4 years ago. Jeez, man. You're really showing your soccer ignorance in this one after such a wonderful display of soccer knowledge last week. You just turn around and just like
all these people are like,
yourself, man.
Yeah, we're going to the World Cup. Where are we going? Are we going to SoFi? Are we going to Miami? No, you're going to Kansas City. Like, what? Where? Is that like the JV tournament?
City barbecue, man. You don't know what you're missing.
See, now I've been banned from Kansas City. Apparently, that's I'm going to get hate mail.
Great, you got the eastern part of the state. I got the western part. Okay. Yeah. Garden City hates me. Kansas City hates you. Okay.
Not even the Chiefs want to play there anymore. They're actually moving out of state just to get away from that stadium. So
they're moving 20 miles, due east. They're still in Kansas City, just the Kansas side.
This place is so awful. We're gonna move to Kansas.
Hey, it's not like the Bears who are going to Gary. Come on. The Gary Bears. I mean, come on. Doesn't that roll off your tongue?
That does. It's perfect. Indiana Bears. So look, a lot of stuff coming up for us. tonight, Tuesday night, is the Lobo basketball team is doing a public workout for the first time since they've assembled the entire team together. They do still have 2 scholarship spots open, so they can add a couple of guys because they need somebody to carry the water bottles down the ramp during games. So I'm sure they'll fill it out with those guys. But they're doing that, and then this week is the Dukes Retro Night, which is always kind of a cool thing.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Which is always
Yep,
kind of a
that's
cool
Friday.
thing. It's a nostalgic thing for anyone who has been around long enough to remember the Albuquerque Dukes. So that's always fun. Of course, the Santa Fe Fuego, they're in their home stretch of the season. James, I know you and Matt Dulside will be front and center for a lot of Isotopes games while I'm on vacation, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Isotopes for sure. You get me to a Fuego game. I don't care if they offer. I don't care if they offer me the starting pitcher spot. For that game, I'm not going to a Fuego game.
They're somewhat competitive too. I believe they were 10-15 last time I checked. So they're not.
Right after giving up 38 runs and 32 runs and 27 runs.
Yeah, giving up your best pitcher. yeah. So anyway, there's all that, and plus the rodeo to Santa Fe too, which I'm sure you'll be out there covering that like the World Cup. So
Yeah. I'll be sitting in front of my couch watching real, something real like soccer. I'd rather watch soccer than rodeo.
Well, look, on that high note, we're going to end our podcast today, but we're working on a few guests. Like I mentioned, Jason Eck. We're going to try to get in Donovan Dent, who is holding a basketball camp at Santa Fe Prep on July 11th. So we'll put in the word to Donnie, see if he'll come on and talk to us. And then, of course, our buddy Paul Weir. We need to get Paul in here before it's too late, because if we wait too long, we might actually lose him to a rival podcast.
Oh, I know, man, and all hell's going to break loose. But he is open to the idea. He is open to the possibility of gracing us with his presence.
Mm-hmm. We can talk about Lobo basketball the whole time. See how that goes.
Oh, man, you just really know how to butter up our guests, don't you?
Yeah.
Let's bring on Vera Joe Bustos and let's just talk about how great Robertson was during her time
We
there.
do that, yeah, for sure. All right, folks. So that'll do it. Happy belated Father's Day to all you out there. And then we'll see you next week. And as always, subscribe to our newsletter. Go to the Santa Fe New Mexican website. You can jump in the newsletter section. James will be updating the newsletter this week. I'm on vacation.
Today
so.
I get, it's one of those rare occasions where I get to be you for a minute.
Yeah, it's. I'm telling you, I've said this before. The hardest thing I have to do all week is write that newsletter, because we write these giant long feature stories, and it's about an 8 or 10 inch story. It takes me all day just to think of 8 to 10 inches to write. So jump into
you
that.
don't have to kill yourself like that. I'm sure they'd be happy with like 4 or 5 paragraphs. You don't have to regale our readership with your writing skills.
Well, the standard is set because the news guys, those overachievers that they are, they're always updating their newsletter like multiple times, at least once a day. We do ours once a week, and it's laborious. So I hand that baton to you for this week. You can take care of it.
When have we turned into a competition with City, man? We always did our own thing, man. It was like, snooze, yeah, you do what you do, man. We do us.
Well, I'm constantly reminded by Matt Dulside, the show killer, to pump the newsletter. And I don't remember it until the very end when everyone's tuned out. So again, just go to the newsletter section, subscribe to it. You'll be doing I think Matt's income relies on the newsletter subscription rate. So do what you
absolutely,
can.
Man. And actually, I think it also depends on how much you write too. So I guess that's why you write 8 to 10 inches, because that's the only way he gets paid.
That's right.
Write a word.
Any story suggestions, send it to sports@sf New Mexican, and we'll take a look. And that's about it. That'll do it for this week.